Chelsea have spent 4 billion totally in all their transfers in football history. Just this transfer season alone, Chelsea have spent more than 100 million, and they are not done yet in the transfer market. They are planning to spend extra 100 or 150 million pounds for the signing of Xavi Simon and Jero Hato. But I'm not here to talk about Chelsea's spending or record signing. I'm here to talk about the players in our current squad. Chelsea had a solid performance last season. There was a point where we were second in the table and we were labelled as the title contenders. But due to inconsistency and lack of performance in various positions, we lose that position. As a matter of fact, Chelsea could have won the Premier League last season if we were consistent enough. Now, there are many positions in Chelsea's squad which have not been replaced due to the fact that those set of players had a good performance in our last 5 matches. But there's something I want to remind you. The 5 matches we played is not the Premier League. It's not the Champions League. It's not even the FA Cup or Carabao Cup. We played in the FIFA Club World Cup. We played against a team that doesn't know our strength and weakness. Playing in the Premier League is a total different thing. Don't be surprised if Chelsea lose their 5 straight match in the Premier League run, because the Premier League is one of the most toughest leagues, so we shouldn't forget about that. What works for us in the FIFA Club World Cup cannot automatically work for us in the Premier League. Defenders and attackers are very sharp in the Premier League. Now, these are the areas Chelsea need to work on. We need to work on our goalkeeper, a particular defender, a particular midfielder, a particular winger, and most especially a particular striker. Now let's start with the goalkeeper. Now we all know that Robert Sanchez had a wonderful performance in the FIFA Club World Cup, especially against PSG. Robert Sanchez was totally amazing. But the question is, can he keep it up? Can he improve? Can Robert Sanchez learn from his mistake totally? Because like I said earlier, it is not the Premier League. And mind you, the Premier League is filled with a lot of pressure, especially against small teams like Crystal Palace, Wolves, or even Brighton. And we all know Robert Sanchez of making multiple errors in the previous matches in the Premier League. Last season alone, Robert Sanchez committed many errors, but just few of them led to goals. He is always pressure the post. That can lead to a lot of mistakes. But during the match against PSG, Robert Sanchez was a lot confident. His shooting were accurate. In fact, Sanchez even contributed to the goals, especially the first goal, which Robert Sanchez crossed to Malo Gusto. Nuno Mendes could not even stop. So if Robert Sanchez continues like that, then next season we have a top goalkeeper at our disposal. And moving on to the next, it will be a defender. Now when I mean defender, I'm talking about Malo Gusto. Now, Malo Gusto's performance last season was the match against PSG. Gusto have been off during the beginning to the end of last season. In fact, there was a time when we forget that Malo Gusto is a Chelsea player due to the fact that he underperformed when he is on the pitch. But against PSG, Malo Gusto gave a solid performance. In fact, Nuno Mendes could not hold Malo Gusto. Malo Gusto was unstoppable. That was the version of Malo Gusto of last 2 seasons. That is the Malo Gusto Chelsea brought 2 years ago. But can he keep it up? And if you take a look at that match, the midfield was already taken by Chelsea and Malo Gusto was overlapping due to the fact that Chalobah and Reece James covered that area. And Malo Gusto is known for his counter-attack abilities, and we make good use of that in the game against PSG. But what if Chelsea are facing an opponent where we require a solid defender and Malo Gusto defend properly? That is the area Malo Gusto needs to work on. Because as it stands now, Chelsea is not a football club that pampered footballers. If a particular footballer is not performing well, if the footballer is not living up to his expectation, he will eventually get sold. Which is the same thing that happens to Noni Madueke and Nicholas Jackson at the moment. They have totally replaced Nicholas Jackson with 2 solid strikers. I don't want to get into that right now. Now here is a fact that 90% of Chelsea fans don't know about Malo Gusto as a Chelsea player. Now I know this is not necessary as a defender. But currently now, Malo Gusto is the only defender that have not scored in Chelsea Football Club. Cucurella have scored multiple goals, Levi Scorer have scored goals, Chalobah have scored goals, Bandashile have scored goals, even Alex Disasi have scored goals, same with Ben Chilwell and Reece James. The reason I'm bringing out this statement is that Malo Gusto normally have a free chances at the opponent goal post multiple times. In fact, Malo Gusto is one of our defenders that have had the opportunity to face our opponent's goalkeeper countless times. There was a particular game last season where Malo Gusto had a one-on-one encounter with a goalkeeper and he couldn't score. You know that Reece James is a good goal scorer. Even Marco Cucurella is a good goal scorer. So if Reece James can work on, if Malo Gusto can work on all these aspects, then he's going to be one of our top defenders and he might actually be one of the best right back in the Premier League next season. Now moving on to our midfielders, the person I want to point out is Romeo Lavia. Romeo Lavia is one of the players that makes Maresca football enjoyable. He is the player that makes Maresca's system beautiful to watch. But due to the fact that Romeo Lavia is unreliable, we had to put Reece James in the midfield, which is very horrible to watch sometimes. Let's be sincere, 100% of Chelsea fans didn't buy the idea of Reece James playing in the midfield against PSG, because we all know that Reece James is not a good midfielder. But by the grace of God, Reece James was able to perform well, and they were successfully locking the midfield against PSG. But we shouldn't rely on that every time. James is not a midfielder. He's not meant to play in that position. Maresca has no choice because Romeo Lavia is not reliable. Do you know that Romeo Lavia have never played a 5 straight match without getting an injury? I mean his time at Chelsea. Ever since Romeo Lavia came to Chelsea, this guy normally have injury every 2 to 3 matches. And the funniest part is, Romeo Lavia don't even play full 90 minutes, but he still managed to get injury on and off the pitch. One of my prayer requests right now is for Andre Santos to blend in, work on his physicality, work on his defensive tactics more, work on his passes and confidence in the pitch so that he can totally replace Romeo Lavia in the squad. Because if we keep on relying on Romeo Lavia, then we are going to see Reece James in defensive midfield many times in the Premier League next season, which is one of the things we don't want as a Chelsea fans. And the next player that I want to point out is Pedro Neto. Now let's not forget the fact that Pedro Neto is one of our best wingers in the FIFA Club World Cup tournament. In fact, Pedro Neto have been on in almost all the matches. He was our main man in the front line. And one thing I love about Pedro Neto is his ability to still run back to the goalpost and defend. You saw that against PSG. The reason why Hakimi could not do those rubbish is because Pedro Neto was able to fall back. Pedro Neto was able to still run back to meet Cucurella and support him in the defense. That is why Dao and Hakimi were locked totally in that position. But the thing I want to highlight about Pedro Neto is his 1v1 ability, because that is where Pedro Neto is lacking the most. Because there will be a time where Pedro Neto will be facing a particular defender. Instead of Pedro Neto to work some magic out, he will pass the ball back, which can make our game go boring sometimes. And Pedro Neto still needs to work on his shooting. Even if Pedro Neto don't have bullets, he should work on his accuracy, his angle. Because if Pedro Neto can be like Kopama or even Joao Pedro, then we are definitely going to appreciate that performance next season. Like I said earlier, the previous tournament we just played is not the Premier League. We have a lot of tough defenders that can go 1v1 against some certain wingers. So if Pedro Neto can improve on all these aspects, then we are good to go. And mind you, Stamford Williams is there. If Pedro Neto drops form and Stamford Williams was able to adapt quickly, then there is going to be a big problem for Pedro Neto in the future. Now the last on my list, remember I mentioned that we need to work on a particular striker. Now mind you, I'm not talking about Nicolas Jackson because that guy is out of Chelsea's project as we are speaking. He doesn't have a spot in the squad anymore. The player that I'm referring to is none other than Delap. Now mind you, Delap was supposed to be our main number 9, and there is no confirmation yet if Joao Pedro is going to be our starter in the Premier League next season. Because you haven't seen it, Maresca would like to give Delap a chance in the beginning of the Premier League. Maybe he can start Delap the first 2 to 3 matches. And mind you, if Delap did not show any improvements in those 3 matches straight, then Joao Pedro will be our number 9 starter. Because currently now, all eyes are on our top 9 because they will be the one we'll be depending on. And see what Joao Pedro did in the FIFA Club World Cup final. He bring out an unbelievable performance. Nobody thought that Joao Pedro, and take Chelsea far. First, Joao Pedro start at Chelsea. He was able to score 2 goals, not just 2 goals, 2 unbelievable goals. And he even went to score against PSG in the finals. That performance alone just left a huge challenge and competition for Delap. Because if Delap did not perform to his best next season, he's going to be our second choice. And we all know that if Delap is our second choice, there is not going to be too much game time for Delap. Now just imagine Joao Pedro and Delap always scoring when they are on the pitch. Defenders are going to hear it out from Chelsea next season. So if Chelsea can work on all these aspects, if the player can work on themselves on all these aspects, then Chelsea have a high chance of winning the Premier League next season, and we can even go to the Champions League final. So Chelsea fans, what is your opinion on this situation? Which player do you think would improve the most? Drop your opinion at the comment section. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more Chelsea updates. See you on my next video.